In this video, we are going to see how we can manage the employee advances in QuickBooks. So let's get started. I will be using QuickBooks Enterprise version. So although this is the latest version as of now, which is QuickBooks 2024 version, but it doesn't matter if you have 2016, 18, 20, 21, whatever year of version you have, just make sure that you are using the Enterprise version, which is the latest one. And even if you're using some other version as well, don't worry, you can just try this method and this might work in your version as well. So if you want to check the current version, you can just simply go to help and click on about section. Here you will see all the details about your QuickBooks license. Now, if you want to manage the complete payroll, QuickBooks offers some additional apps that you can attach with it. For example, here on the bottom left corner, you can see this do more with QuickBooks. You can turn on the payroll, but obviously this needs some additional subscription and then you can completely manage the payroll in QuickBooks. But if I want to manage some certain aspects and not the complete payroll, I can do that. Because most of the time, the company has only one subscription, that is for QuickBooks accounts, and they are managing payroll and salaries on the Excel sheet. They just want to enter the final entries, but there are some requirements. They want to track the employee advances because some employees ask you for the advance and then they request you to deduct it from their salary. But the problem is when the salary date comes, they want you to defer the deduction in several months and don't deduct all the amount. For example, one employee took 5,000 in advance from their salary, but then they want to not just deduct 5,000 right away from the next salary. They want you to do some installments on it. Now it's very difficult to track this for each separate employee, and you have to make sure as an accountant that you don't overpay an employee without deducting the advance or without keeping the proper records, right? Now we can easily and effectively manage this situation in QuickBooks easily. I will just go to company and click on make journal entries. Now let's suppose that an employee took an advance from you on 10th of January and I need to enter it in employee advances. Now since I am using the sample company, I already have the employee advances account, but I don't want to use this because it already has some entries, right? So I will use employee cash advances, something unique so that I can create a new ledger. So employee cash advances, press tab. I need to set it up. Now, if we want to select the nature, what nature should we select? Because we have given the cash in advance to employee, right? So obviously we will receive that money back and this is a receivable. So that means it should be a current asset or other current asset. So as you can see that in other current assets, it is showing clearly an example that what can be recorded in this area. It could be prepaid expenses and employee cash advances clearly mentioned here. So let's click continue and hit save and close. Now let's say that I have given 15,000 to employee in cash advances from their salary. So I will put a memo here. Let's put a memo. So although I have mentioned the memo, I want it to be recorded in the separate employee section, and that can be specified in the name. Let's write Joseph here and press tab, and I can click on quick add. It will ask you the option if it is a vendor, customer, or as an employee. So I'll select the employee and click OK. And let's move to the next line. Now here I need to specify from which account did I give the cash. And for example, this is paid from the checking account. So I'll just select the checking account here, just write it here and you will get this. And I'll mention the name here as well and save and close. And let's add some more in the situation. Let's say on 25th January, he actually has some general problem. And for that reason, he took the advance again before the completion of month. So right here, employee cash advance. And let's say he need 7,000 more. And let's write advance salary issued to Mr. Joseph. Let's specify here as well. And again, we are paying from the checking account. And let's specify the name again and click on save and new. Now, similarly, let's take an example of another employee. He also took an advance of 8th of January. And let's mention employee cash advances here. And let's say he took 5,000 from us. And let's write the name here, David. quick add. This is an employee. Let's continue, and we are paying him by checking account. Let's also specify again the name here, and let's save and close. And let's say he also took more advance on 20th, employee cash advances. And let's say this time he has taken 10,000. Let's specify the name and the checking account from which we have paid. Now the sole purpose of entering multiple employees and their records is that we can see the multiple filters that we can apply to the report. So let's click on save and new. Now here basically why we are using this name feature and not creating the ledgers, because most of the people do this mistake. They create a lot of employee cash advances ledger for each separate employee. But that's not the correct way to deal with this. Why? Because the employees come and go. So that means if you create the ledger for him, it will still be standing in the chart of accounts, and you have a lot of chart of accounts to manage then. So as you can see here that we only have one ledger that manages all the employees. All right. Now let's suppose that both of the employee have 50,000 monthly salary. So on 31st January, we will see how we can enter the salary and how we can deduct that advance from their salary. All right. Now I'll go to company and click on make journal entries to make the monthly salary entry. And let's say on 31st January 2024, we need to record the salary. And that is called accrual concept, that you have to make the salary expense the part of the month in which they are actually incurred, even though they are paid later. So for example, the January salary will be paid in next month like 5th or 2nd of February, but still you need to record the expense in this particular month so that it can reflect in the profit and loss account. So salary expense, or let's write payroll expenses. Actually, this is the sample company. So I want the fresh ledger to be created. So I'll create the salary expense ledger, setup, and setup as expense, continue, and save and close. Now we are supposing that each employee has 50,000 salary, but employee 1, he was Joseph, right? He took 10,000 in advance. So what do you think will be the salary expense? Now, if you're thinking that salary expense will be 40,000 now, you are wrong. Why? Because they took advance. That is separate thing that they need to pay. But the salary expense will be still 50,000 because their salary is 50,000. So the expense on our part will be 50,000, out of which they have already taken 10,000 that should be separately accounted for, but the expense will be the same. So I'll write salary FMO. Now it will save you a lot of space if you write FMO instead of for the month of. You will save 4 words in this abbreviation. January 24 accrued. Now I've already explained you what accrual is, and now we will specify the employee here. And on the second line, we will adjust the customer advance. Let's say the employee agrees to deduct the 5,000 in this month's salary. So employee cash advances, I'll mention here. Now at that time, the employee cash advances was recorded as a receivable as an asset, means on the debit side. But now that he is paying this 5,000, I will reduce the receivable. That means I need to record it on the credit side. And again, I'll mention the employee name here. And on the third line, we need to pay 45,000. 5,000 we have already paid, which we will reduce it from the overall payable. And the rest of the employee salary is payable. But on 31st January, we haven't paid actually anything. We just want to make the part of this month as an expense. So at that point, we will write here payroll liabilities, or you can write it salary payable. Now this will be recorded as an other current liability. So click continue, save and close, and save and new. Now let's mention it for the other employee. We are paying for 31st January 2024 employee expense, or let's write salary expense. And since I mentioned that each employee is given 50,000 salary, so I will write salary for the month of January 24 accrued. Same method. And employee 2 name was David, and he has also agreed to deduct 5,000 from his salary of this month. So let's mention here employee cash advances 5,000. Let's mention the name here as well. And I'll write salary payable here. So it automatically shows 45,000 as a balance to be paid. Now let's save and close because we have done the entries. Now we don't have any specific report of employee cash advances. We have to create that report out of some other report. So what I'll do is I will go to the reports and click on accounts and taxes, and you can select this option which says transaction detail by account. And then if we set it to all dates, you can see that there are a lot of ledgers here, but I need to see only one ledger details. As you can see here that this is all the checking account details, and we also have the details of David Joseph here, but we want a separate account to be shown here, which is for employee cash advances, right? So for that, I will use the filters, which is very interesting. I'll go to customize report here, and from here I will go to the filters, and from filters I can mention the employee cash advances here, and that's it. Click OK, and you can see the individual details of the cash advances. Now if you just want to see for one particular employee, what you can do is just reapply the filter and now reapply it by name, and right here David, and click OK. Now this is the detail for David ledger only. And if you want to access that again without needing to apply the filters and all settings, you can just simply memorize it, and let's write David report cash advance. Anything you can mention in the memorize group, and let's save it in the employee section. So we have a special category in the report section that I'll show you. Click OK, and this one is now saved. Now whenever you want to access this report, I'll just go to the reports, and under the memorize report I can see the employee section where I have the report just for David. So just imagine how much customizations can you do and create your own reports and save it in the memorize group. You can also specify the font sizes and all the headers and footer settings, whatever you want to do with this. So just play around and try to enter all of these cash advances like I did, and I'll see you in the next one.